So, good afternoon and welcome everybody here to this online webinar and roundtable on the Global IoT Day that is this year on April the 9th. So we have a event series. So this is not only the first event, it's I think the fourth event in the series of these online webinars on the IoT Day. That is organized by the DOS project, and I would like to welcome you here to this IoT Day on the topic of policy and certification for a trusted IoT ecosystem in EU. My name is Martin Schneider. I'm from Fraunhofer Focus, and we are part of the DOS project that is organizing this day. And we have prepared for you a number of interesting presentations and recognized speakers here that would show from their background and their projects their innovations and advantages with respect to this topic of policy and certification for a trusted IoT ecosystem in EU. So I think you will get some very interesting insights, and in the end, we will have the roundtable where we can also discuss topics in more depth with you. Let me start with the agenda. So we have Roberto Cascello for the keynote. He's from ECSO and will hold the keynote presentations, and then afterwards we have 5 different presentations from 5 EU projects, or actually from 6 projects, which will give you insights, what has been developed in the projects, what are specific perspectives with respect to today's topic. This will last for roughly 90 minutes, and after that we will start the roundtable discussion, where you from the audience can ask your questions in addition to those that you have entered into the Q&A tool from this Zoom webinar during the presentations. And then it is planned to close the event around 4 o'clock. Just a few notes in the beginning. So this webinar will be recorded, or is actually being recorded. So we will record everything. If you speak here, then you will be recorded, and we will upload and publish this recording afterwards on the event website. If, as I said, you have any questions, we would be eager to answer them. The speakers would be very interested to see how are your views on the topics they presented. So please use the question and answer tool from the Zoom webinar tool. You will find a button with the description Q&A at the bottom of the tool. So click on that and enter your question. And depending on the time, we will either ask them directly after the presentation or in the end at the roundtable. So we will gather all your questions, and the speakers are interested to answer them. So don't hesitate, just enter your questions right now when they came to your mind, so that we can then have all the questions from your side also latest in the roundtable. Okay, then I would like to thank you, and also particularly all the speakers that are here to present. So the very first presentation, as I said, is the keynote presentation from Roberto Cascello from ECSO about the state of the EU IoT security policy. Roberto Cascello works as his Chief Technology Officer at the European Cybersecurity Organization ECSO. He also coordinates 2 technical working groups there, the working group 1 that focuses on standardization and certification in cybersecurity, with a mission to establish trusted supply chains at EU level, and the working group 6 that defines cybersecurity research and innovation roadmap for trusted and resilient technologies. Roberto will present how IoT security is transformed from a technical best practice into a market and governance requirement, highlighting some research challenges. So, Roberto, the stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Martin. And thanks a lot also for the kind invitation to present this workshop. So indeed, I mean, I try to go fast directly to the core of the presentation. So a few words about ECSO before moving to the overall. So we were started, well, actually, we were created in 2016 and as a public-private partnership of the European Commission. And then nowadays we continue still collaborating with all the different institutions, and the objective is really to strengthen the communities, the cybersecurity community in Europe, and we have different type of members really representing the entire cybersecurity ecosystem, from large companies to SME, startup, national public administrations, operators and end users, universities, association regions, but also investors and financial institutions. So we published at the end of last year our European cybersecurity vision. So basically we have three different pillars where we focusing on. So the first one, the first objective is to Europe as a hallmark for competitiveness, is really to strengthen European strategic digital autonomy by reinforcing the cybersecurity industry, driving research and innovation, and then enhancing also market efficiencies, in addition to attract top talents to really increase the skill to also support European businesses. The second pillar is focused more on the resilience aspect, so that it covers the protection of the critical infrastructure, security supply chain, and also developing advanced dual use capabilities. And the third part, the third objective focus more on the Europe as a global shaper, so to actually projecting its value standards and then cutting edge capabilities internationally. So while also fostering economic growth for European technologies and expertise. So going directly to the core of today. So I try to a little bit what is the state of play, and in particular all the what are the different issues that are linked to IoT cybersecurity, and then how things are changing also along the years, by considering also what is a policy perspective, technological perspective, and then also how this has an impact in particular for the market. So if you look at the problem, so of course we see since many years that we have a lot of connected IoT devices that are deployed globally, and in particular so Europe accounts for roughly more than 20% of the global IoT market. What we've seen also in the latest years, we've seen different type of attacks that have an impact with respect to that have attacked differently consumer IoT, but also exploiting vulnerabilities for IoT that are deployed in industrial environments and also for critical infrastructure. So these has created quite a need to really enhance the cybersecurity aspects that are and capability that are deployed into IoT, and also to increase the resilience. What we are seeing also that we are moving also more and more toward softwareization of the different, let's say, products. And so this also pose a little bit some challenges connected, to this a little bit shifted of the paradigm. At the same time, so we have that. So if you look at cybersecurity from the market perspective, so normally companies that have invested heavily in securing their products, they had not always a competitive advantage on the market, especially when we look at the consumer IoT. So we had products that had some possible potential vulnerabilities that could be exploited. So we have seen also different type of attacks in the past. And also there is not always clear what are the security functionality, the add-on part of the security into the different products, especially when we look at the buyers, they have challenging, it's quite challenging for them to compare across, different type of products. And so the idea is to really try to address all these possible challenges also from a policy perspective. So if we look at, if you look from the policy evolution in the latest years, so we see more a shift towards, previous specific guidelines and best practice that have been devised to more working really on the standards. So we have seen with the ETSI, with the EN 303645, that is the standards for setting up a baseline of IT security, but also we have seen also the flourishing of the different labeling schemes, moving towards more policy and regulation that try to regulate also the different products that are placed on the market. In particular, we see in the latest years, so the main, I would say, regulation that is keeping everyone busy at the moment is the Cyber Resilience Act that will enter into force in December 2027. But still, we have from September with the single reporting platform, so the vulnerabilities need to be already reported toward the end of this year. So the Cyber Resilience Act has created a shift, in particular, establishing a horizontal baseline for all connected products, and it's really fundamental in the sense that if products needs to be placed on the market, they need to be compliant with the CRA. On the other hand, we have seen in the previous years and the Radio Equipment Directive that I placed here, which covers all devices that that are connected to the internet. So the red, it's already in place. So it's from August last year, and it's representing also an important exercise, especially when we look at the preparation for the Cyber Resilience Act when it will become mandatory for products that need to enter the market. But moving from let's say the product type of regulation, so we can also take in consideration different kind of aspects. In particular, when the IoT are deployed in the critical infrastructure, so they have also an impact or with respect to the activities of the critical infrastructure, and as such, they also come into play with respect to the NIS directive that is active already since 2024, October 2024. In the sense that the NIS will apply also to IoT, considering the fact that are deployed as part of the industrial control system, all the different smart infrastructure, and so on. So it's important to really take in consideration what are the risks associated also to the IoT devices. Moving on, we have also seen nowadays, it's quite a hot topic. So this year, there's been a proposal for revision of the Cybersecurity Act with respect to the different certification schemes that are going to be proposed within the European Cybersecurity Certification Framework. So this is another component to take in consideration. If you look also, another regulation that has an impact is the GDPR, which handles data and personal data. And the attendance personal data is active already since 2018. And also this year, we have seen the proposal of the ICT supply chain toolbox, which take in consideration try to understand the possible high-risk vendors and then also the consequences and the remedies to use devices that could pose in particular risk with respect to the when they're used they're integrated into product and systems. So in the sense, we need to look from the policy and regulatory perspective a little bit all these policy and regulations. Personally, see not as standalone, but these policy and regulation, they really need to be looked together when we consider the security of IoT. In particular, so considering a little bit the evolution nowadays, we see the relevance in Europe of this concept of strategic autonomy, try to understand also the possible risk that are associated with the suppliers, and this also calls very much, for the IoT security when the IoT devices are integrated again. And from the policy perspective, this is very much reflected into the ICT supply chain toolbox. At the same time, we see also the IoT security that could be also market differentiator, considering the fact that we want to be sure of the product that are going to be placed on one end of the market, but also integrated, that provide the right level of security, and also that we can understand we can compare the different security claims that are linked to the different products that are placed on the market. Cybersecurity certification could play a role here, and of course the CRA, it's the baseline that we need to take in consideration. This is connected very much to the block later, that we focus very much on the product and the technology. And here we see different kind of challenges that we need to address, like the management of vulnerability, the SBOM, when we consider in particular the software bill of material aspects, so to really understand also the dependencies, and then also how also updates can be also provided over the air for tiny devices. So we see very much a link with the different product regulations, but also the standards from ETSI. And the last pillar that for me it's also interesting to consider into the way that we see changes also in the how cybersecurity is linked from the operational, technological, and also regulatory aspects. So it's focused very much on understanding the risk associated with different products, to also consider the possible incidents that could derive by exploiting a specific vulnerability, and then also how the risk it's managed, and then the resilience is guaranteed, in particular for the cybersecurity for the critical infrastructures. So lately, in the latest, I would say, 10 years, we've seen very much also an acceleration in Europe, and the IoT is at the core, also considering the digital transformation that we are having. So this is driven very much by the all emerging technologies, and we need to understand also what is the impact of this digital transformation, but also how this digital transformation is also reshaping the different sectors, the different vertical industries, and how these industries really rely on the technologies. So cybersecurity is an important pillar that is connected to ensuring operational continuity, but also to guaranteeing European strategic digital sovereignty in Europe. At ECSO, we have been working so far on ECSO on a vision towards 2035. So I'm looking into specifically, these pillars, that is resilience that needs to be guaranteed, digital autonomy, strategic sovereignty, and also the protection of the fundamental rights. We have done a technology map that is a continuous exercise. So IoT are, I would say, at the moment are placed into the advanced and computing part, but we see very much that they come into place in all different that are linked very much into all the different strategic technologies. So I try to understand what could be the challenges that are linked in the future, for ensuring secure IoT. So nowadays, we see very much the issue linked to the advent of quantum computers. So that could have an impact in particular for the cryptography aspect. So it's important to understand the challenges that are linked to post-quantum cryptography, and then how we could migrate IoT devices to post-quantum algorithms. Another important challenge is linked to this bomb. So during these days, I mean, we are trying to have also some discussions linked to this bomb. So we see a lot of initiatives that are linked to this bomb. So we are seeing also NISA that issued a survey to link it to this bomb. There are also some guidelines that are produced under the G7. And so it's important to understand what will be the impact of using bombs, so how they need to be also considered for the different IoT devices and how deep we need to go into the dependency chain. That an important point, it's about the updates. And this is also, we want to be sure that the updates don't create or bring new possible risks. So it's important also to ensure that we have mechanisms to really check the updates that are going to be pushed. We see also other two points. It's linked to the understand the using AI power threat detection tools for really analyzing the behavior of IoT devices and also to try to identify possible vulnerabilities as well. And the last part is to focus on the hardware root of trust. The last slides that I would like to present, because I see also Martin, so I think that I'm all towards the end of the time. So try to link a little bit the research priorities to the regulatory aspects. So the first point, it's really focused on vulnerability research. So the CRA creates the legal frameworks for coordinated disclosure, but it's important to have an understanding how we could really move towards automated vulnerability detection, but also validation of this bomb, and also try to really proper understanding. We see also the thing that the past days there is also the announcement in US for AI power way to detect vulnerabilities. So it's important to really have a proper research and then movement also on this side. The second part, it's important to really work also on the secure by design methods to really focus on the usual aspects linked to threat modeling, formal verification, but also secure boot architectures, and to consider that they have also an impact with respect to the regulatory requirements. Supply chain, it's strategic importance. So, and because we can consider that the boundaries of the ICT security, it really goes when we goes with the supply chain. So, and here this is very much connected to the proposal of the ICT supply chain toolbox, so to have a proper understanding of the dependencies, analysis IoT framework. And the last point is about certification assurance with an important aspect that is linked to automated compliance, automated conformity assessment that is still an open challenge. So just the last message is that security, it's shifted from, let's say, of nice to have guidelines, best practice, to really to be really critical for the business, and then it's also needs to be really taken seriously in consideration. So the design, also the different architecture, needs to consider also the regulations and when they apply in terms of compliance. It's important to develop also some European capabilities, so to really invest in Europe, and also that research is very much linked with the regulatory cycle. And with this, thank you so much for your attention. So, and I will stay on for questions either via chat or later during the roundtable discussions. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you very much, Roberto. Very interesting presentation and also perspective. So I think it also gives a big picture to everyone here in the audience. I guess due to the time, we would shift the questions to the roundtable discussion. And I would like to announce our next speaker. That is Martin Hortun from SINTEF. So he is senior scientist at SINTEF Digital in Trondheim in Norway. He leads the methodology work package of the telemetry project and has a particular interest in software security and software supply chain security. And his presentation will be about how telemetry tools help you in the certification process. And yeah, this is the topic of your presentation. And now the stage is yours, Martin.
Thank you very much. So I hope that my slides are visible.
Yes, they are.
Yes, thank you for the introduction. I will just skip right along to the presentation. If that somehow works. Yes, here we go. So the telemetry project, as I guess most of the projects in this group of projects, it's in its final year. We will finish in November this year. And this illustration is from the project proposal, and it somehow illustrates the core components that are relevant to the topic of today. So we have, in the project, we have component testing tools. We also have system testing tools. And we have also a focus on risk management. And there's one particular tool which is being extended in the project known as Spider Risk, which we will talk more about in this presentation. So as already mentioned by Roberto, one of the cornerstones in respect to certification and security in Europe today is the Cyber Resilience Act. And there is one particular standard, the ETSI EN 303-645, which actually covers the most important parts of the Cyber Resilience Act. And as it does cover all IP-connected consumer IoT products, and the Cyber Resilience Act, as mentioned by Roberto, it covers pretty much anything with digital elements. So that's definitely most IoT devices that you can think about. There are, of course, some notable exceptions, but we won't go into them here. So what I will do today is to provide examples of how telemetry tools can support a certification process, but make it clear that unfortunately I cannot offer any fire and forget solution. They are individual tools that can provide individual solutions. All our tools can be found at the telemetry website, the URL provided below. And today, I only have time to give a very small number of examples, but I will share with you. So jumping right into the standard, one specific example that where we say that telemetry tools can support is provision 513-1B, which states that data input shall be validated by the device regarding unexpected data input to prevent system manipulations and failures. And our approach to addressing this is to use network fuzzing. So what we've done is we've taken the open source BUFOS tool and we have created customized fuzzing harnesses for residential gateways, which is one particular use case in the telemetry project, where our partner Telecom Italia has a particular residential gateway, so basically the Wi-Fi router that they provide to their customers. And we have shown through there's a separate paper on this that you can check if you are interested, where we have shown how you can use the BUFOS fuzzer with our customized testing harness to actually explore the robustness of a particular residential gateway device. And I can also, as a sort of a spoiler alert, we did actually find a previously unreported vulnerability in that particular router. So the next provision where we can help is provision 5.2-3. Manufacturers should continually monitor for, identify, and rectify security vulnerabilities within consumer IoT products that they sell. And this also matches nicely with what Roberto previously mentioned. The telemetry SBOM tool can be used to identify the software components of a device. The resulting inventory can then be used to query the National Vulnerability Database for relevant CVEs. So the way that this works is that the SBOM tool can be run periodically by an operator or as part of a certification process. And this actually enables continuous monitoring of relevant vulnerabilities over time. I try to illustrate this a little bit more. As you already know, the Cyber Resilience Act actually mandates that all manufacturers must provide a software bill of materials when they sell their product in Europe. But we also know that currently that's not true for all manufacturers. So our SBOM tool actually is able to, under specific circumstances, to take the executable firmware, as long as it's not been encrypted or obfuscated, and actually generate a more or less complete software bill of materials directly by doing analysis of the firmware. That's the two options that you have. Either the manufacturer provides you with the software bill of material, in which case everything is fine, or you have to generate it yourself. There's also a third option not necessarily mentioned in this illustration, and that is, of course, that the manufacturer may have a software bill of materials, but may actually have made some changes since publishing the software bill of materials, in which case it actually helps to be able to double check with our SBOM generator to see if it still matches up. So whichever way it goes, you then end up with a software bill of materials that you can use, and then our tool very easily actually does a lookup specifically in the National Vulnerability Database and can provide you with a list of CVEs which are relevant for your device in question. And what do you do with this CVE list? Well, this is the topic for the next example. The provision 5.3-8 states that security updates shall be timely. And one approach to this is, of course, that what you would like to see is that you're able to fix vulnerabilities in a prioritized order. So by using the SBOM tool in concert with the spider risk assessment tool, we actually are able to prioritize CVEs in order to patch the most critical ones first. And the spider risk tool is used to create a model of the device in question, so in this case, a residential gateway. And by combining this with the list of created CVEs, we can actually feed this into the risk model created by Spider Risk, and then for each CVE, see to what extent that CVE, that particular vulnerability, actually changes the risk picture. And by doing this process, we as it sort of illustrated by this flowchart, we run through sequentially for each CVE, and then determines what the resulting risk value is. And by doing this for all the relevant CVEs, we can then, at the end of that process, determine which CVE actually increases the risk the most, and thus this CVE is the most risky and the one that you should, if at all possible, patch first. This is also explained further in our paper from last year, and we have a follow-up paper which hopefully will be accepted and presented at the LifeSec workshop as part of SmartComp in Sicily this summer. And that was the extent of my presentation. So thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions or possibly later at the panel.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Martin, for this interesting presentation, and also I think the help or the support that the telemetry project has developed. So it's actually quite interesting, and I think can be also very, very supportive. For instance, the spider risk approach looks very interesting. So I think with respect to the time, let's push the questions to the end. But just as a reminder, you can find the Q&A tool at the bottom of the Zoom webinar. So it's a small speech bubble with a question mark in it. Sometimes it might be hidden behind the chat symbol. It's an empty speech bubble. So in case you're looking for it, you might find it there. With that, I would like to go over to the next presentation. And our next speaker, that will be Emanuel Kunz from Fraunhofer ISEC. So he should be here also together with his colleague Christian Banse from Fraunhofer ISEC, who unfortunately got sick and cannot be here. So we are happy that we still have Emanuel Kunz here, who will hold the presentation. Emanuel Kunz is senior scientist at Fraunhofer ISEC with a PhD in privacy engineering, and he has been deeply involved in the research landscape in continuous certification. He was, for instance, the worker package leader in the Medina project and is currently active in COBALT. He has published several papers in the area of continuous monitoring, data flow analysis, and cloud privacy, and is active developer of the continuous monitoring and certification framework Conformate. Christian Banse, he is not unfortunately here because he went sick, is the head of the Department of Service and Application Security at ISEC, currently pursuing a PhD in the context of cloud compliance. And the presentation that will be held by Emanuel is called Developing Common Security Metrics for Continuous Certification. Yeah, in that presentation, Emanuel will briefly look into the method that they have developed to derive metrics from certification catalogs and where they stand currently in the repository. So Emanuel, thanks for being here. The stage is yours.
Thanks. Thank you for the introduction. Thanks for having me. Like you said, unfortunately, Christian is not with me today. He's more involved in the Emerald side of things. I'm more involved in COBALT. But I think that will be fine since I'm talking about a topic here that's been driven by all projects alike. And I think the topic connects really well with the two presentations we've seen so far. So you already said it. It's about developing common security metrics. I think this is really essential when we talk about continuous certification, about monitoring systems. It always comes down to how do we translate regulatory requirements to technical metrics so we can actually measure them automatically. And what I will talk about now in the next couple of minutes is about an effort we have been driving from different projects, EU-funded projects, to build up an open source repository for such metrics that involves a common knowledge base. So we really enable a collaborative way of developing them to really enable continuous certification for everyone. I think I don't really have to talk much about this motivation here. We already heard there's increasing number of regulations. Right now, Cyber Resilience Act is one of the hottest topics, I think. We have loads of other regulations and policies, etc., that companies and other organizations have to fulfill. At the same time, we have an increasing complexity especially in cloud and IoT systems, in these diverse dynamic systems, increasing size of these systems, increasing complexity in supply chains. So we really cannot rely just on a point-in-time assessment that's that's conducted once a year. Since we have to manage all these evidences, assessments, findings, mitigations, risks, etc., and we cannot really fight this battle like the poor guy here on the right, with Excel and printouts. So what we really need is automation in this area. I think there's a huge potential for automation. And for that, first step would be standardization. We need standardized data formats. We need standardized processes around these data formats. And metrics are really essential for building such automated or at least semi-automated compliance systems. Just a little bit of background very shortly, because we have been working on this topic for so long. We have tried so many different solutions for putting out a standard for these metric definitions. And one important dimension that you should consider here is, do you want to make this a metric definition more human readable or more machine readable? Let's take this very simple example here. It's a classic, I think, about encryption. Are database resources encrypted at rest? Now we have to kind of choose, do we want to make this more human readable, accessible for governance people without a technical background as well? Or do we want on the other end, this kind of logic language? You could also write this in Prolog or other languages, to have a very deterministic way of writing these metrics to make them clearly machine readable. And what we have settled on right now is trying to combine both, the best of both worlds, so to say. So we are writing metrics right now in a human readable way, but we have clear references to standardized terms that have a clear meaning, and where these terms like storage, at rest encryption, and certain properties on this encryption, where they come from, how we standardize them, I will show you in a minute. So what do these metrics look like? I just want to give you a quick look at this. So we have this open source repository now where we are always combining different types of files. So for each metric, you will find this kind of dual structure you see here. A YAML file with human readable information. You see here the name, the description that we just saw before as well, and some other data category. We can add comments, configuration data. And then we have this more this deterministic machine readable way of defining these metrics as well. We are using Rego now usually as a language, but in principle, you can use other languages too. And what it comes down to here, this is more of a simple example, but you can see below, we simply compare a target value that is given for the metric. Like in this case, it's just true, right? We compare this with this enabled field that we get in the input. So right now we have a bunch of these in the repository, and this is also integrated in our compliance management framework. So what I also want to take some time now for is explaining what I mentioned before, and these are these standardized terms we are using to really drive this collaborative effort. You can probably imagine if we collaborate across projects to get metrics into this repository, you would very quickly have a lot of redundancies, overlaps between the metrics. You would have a lot of confusion there. But this is where this ontology comes in, that we have also been working on for quite a few years. And this ontology models resources, their properties, and also security features they offer. So bear with me for a minute. So you can see here on the right an example. There is a model of a virtual machine. It's just an excerpt. And you can see on the very right, that a virtual machine has multiple block storages. So we model what kind of other resources this resource is connected to, right? Then we also model an inheritance. On the left, virtual machine is a type of compute resource. So it inherits properties from compute as well. And then it also offers different kinds of features, like, for example, malware protection or boot logging. So we also model what kinds of security features you can measure on this. And this really enables us to build this common knowledge base first, before we write the metrics that are able to measure these properties. So once someone from one of the projects or other stakeholders who contribute to this repository want to get in a metric, they would check the ontology first, check whether the property they are interested in is already modeled, or if not, they would try to get it into the ontology via a pull request. And we at Fraunhofer ISAC, we are governing the repository at the moment. And then it's quite easy actually to write metrics for all these properties. So this is this common knowledge base we are building in the repository as a basis for really having distinct metrics that are easily connectable to requirements from different regulations as well. And we have also a paper about this, which will be published at IFAB-SEC soon, where we lay out the methodology for this in more detail if you're interested. So some more words just about the status quo here. Like I said, we have various projects contributing to this open source repository. You can check it out on GitHub. Mainly it's COBALT, Emerald, also Confirmate, another EU-funded project which focuses on the Cyber Resilience Act and building a framework to continuously monitor for Cyber Resilience Act requirements. At the moment, we have about 60 metrics integrated. You can see here there are a lot more branches open and pull requests are open. So there's a lot of work in progress. We're integrating lots of metrics now. And of course, alongside, we are also building this ontology with all the necessary properties and resource types, which you can also find in this repository. So I really want to make some advertising for this, check it out. And we are also happy about contributions and of course about questions for about this effort. Thanks for listening.
Thanks a lot, Emmanuel, for the interesting presentation and also the approach that seems to be very important to make certification and compliance feasible. And I think it's also worth considering to contribute to this project. So thanks a lot. So let's now get to our next presentation. The next presentation will be held by Simon Bouguet from RISE. He is a researcher in the cybersecurity unit at the Research Institute of Sweden, which is coordinating the CUSTODES project and focus on creating secure architecture by leveraging hardware security. And the presentation is, as you can see right now, cybersecurity conformity assessment made easy in Europe. That sounds like a very good goal. Is designing a modular platform to integrate cybersecurity conformity assessments early in the product lifecycle, make it easier for non-expert. And with that brief introduction, I would like to give the stage to Simon.
Hi, hello everyone. I hope you hear me well. So yes, let's dive into it since we have only 10 minutes. So as everyone else, I had a few introduction slides that I will go through quickly because we are all talking about the same topics. As was mentioned in the keynote at the very beginning, conformity assessment is a very complex process with a variety of challenges. And one of the key reasons that it's complicated for ICT products in general and IoT in particular is that products are usually quite complex, heterogeneous, and composed of many different components. And for SMEs in particular, they rarely have all the skills in-house to perform all the security-focused tasks to do conformity assessment and certification, such as penetration testing, vulnerability analysis, etc., etc. And this has a lot of this adds a lot of dependency and cost. And as was also mentioned in the keynote, there are a lot of various layers of regulation, standards, and legal constraints that are currently put in place at the European level. And especially for critical sectors like telecom and automotives. And so cybersecurity certification is not only a technical challenge, but it's also a business challenge to be able to enter certain markets, and that is necessary to raise product trustworthiness and customers' confidence. And so our project is trying to propose an integrated platform that serves as a bridge between the vendor and the manufacturer on one side and the assessor and regulator on the other side, to make this conformity assessment process easier for everyone and integrate it early in a product lifecycle. So in 15 seconds, this is a consortium working in this project. This is a 3-year project, and we are at month 30. We are concluding in September this year. And we have a very diverse consortium with SMEs, large industrial actors, end users like on both the assessor and the manufacturer side. So we represent all stakeholders in the project. And so this figure illustrates the certification process. And well, it looks complicated, and that's the point. I'm not going to go into the details, but the point is to illustrate that there are a lot of moving parts and a lot of different steps to perform certification of an ICT product. And so that's why we want to integrate all of this in a single integrated platform. A few important challenges to highlight are, so again, it's complex and time intensive, especially if you want to assess the conformity of a product for different assurance levels. And several issues that have been mentioned previously are the fact that you have to update devices continuously. You also have trust concern when you perform the assessment, because the vendor may not want to show their IP and to show their trade secrets, but the assessor may need to look into the product deeply to verify that it is secure or not. And the assessment that has to be performed is also varying based on which domain you want to sell your product and which industry you are targeting. So there is a very fragmented market, and due to a lack of a European scheme and to non-harmonized standardization. And on top of this fragmented market, there is also a lack of information sharing between industrial actors that sometimes are competitors and don't want to help their other companies. So all of that combined makes it so that conformity assessment and certification is usually a very high cost for organization, and it creates a barrier to entry and a bottleneck in some markets. So those are the main challenges that we are trying to solve. And to do that, we have designed this platform that, and you see the high-level architecture of the platform in the figure now. So the general idea is that we have a central hub that manages the entire thing, and modular components are organized around it. And so we have two main components, one for each type of end user, because once again, we have the vendor or manufacturer that create products, and we have the assessor that have to assess and verify that the product is conform to regulations and standards. So there is one component dedicated to help and assist each of these end user. And then around that, we have a variety of support components that realize specific support features. And here I would like to take a few seconds to say that I think what we are doing in this project has a bit of overlap with what we have seen in the previous presentation today, but mostly what we are doing is complementary. And I think a lot of what we have seen earlier today could be very useful to integrate in a more streamlined and workflow, like what we are trying to do in CUSTODES. So the tools from telemetry, for instance, could be very, very useful to integrate. And so the key focus of this architecture is to be as efficient as possible, because again, the entire point of the project is to make conformity assessment easy for everyone. And so we want to reduce the barrier to entry and provide as much guidance and automation for people who are most likely not security experts when they use our platform. The second important focus is about information sharing. We want to promote industry-wide cooperation to avoid redoing the same work again and again. If two products are using the same off-the-shelf component, we don't want this same component to have to be re-evaluated and reassessed for each of the products. In turn, this allows us to adopt a very modular approach, which makes it easy to work with composite target of evaluation that are composed of many individual components. And so, because if a component has already been evaluated in a different composite target, we can reuse this information and simplify the process. And finally, this modular approach also enables continuous certification, or continuous assessment and reassessment when there is an update, a security patch that has been performed. You can focus your reassessment on only the part of your product that have been modified by this update. And so the goal of this platform is to create a bridge between these two sides of the community, on the product owner on one side and the assessor on the other side. So the typical workflow starts on the product owner side, and they will create a list of assets. Sorry. Excuse me. They will create a list of assets, which means that which will compose the target of evaluation, which means that the product owner has to define a clear boundary around their product, what's in scope, what's not, for the evaluation. At the end of this phase, the product owner has a list of assets, and the next step is to perform risk assessment assisted by the platform that will guide the process. And to obtain a list of vulnerabilities, threats, and risks. And again, this is a feature that we have seen presented in other projects today before. Then the product owner has to define the security details of their product. That is to say, what security objectives, requirements, and associated control they have to implement. And so controls are measurable ways to verify that a requirement has been properly implemented. And all this information is contained in a protection profile that will serve as input for the next phase. And you will see an example of, you will not see an example today, time is too short. So now we come to the conformity assessment phase. And so here, this conformity assessment can be performed either by the product owner themselves in a self-assessment mode. So that's typically early in the product lifecycle, or it can be performed by a third-party assessor when the product is more mature and you want to actually go for certification. This conformity assessment is based on evidences that are provided through audit and testing of the product and in reference to the protection profile defined in the previous phase. And it's performed either in a traditional lab where you have to trust the assessor, but we also offer some confidential testing in a trusted execution environment. And if the assessor does not have enough evidence, we can iterate this process several times until we have enough to conclude, and then optionally share information with the rest of the ecosystem. So just a quick word on the confidential testing I just mentioned before. This is a testing environment that is based on hardware root of trust. And it's a domain that is fully isolated from the host environment. No one, not even us who are operating the platform, can see what's happening inside. So a vendor can send their sensitive assets and they are only decrypted inside the trusted domain, and only the test result can come out, never the assets themselves. So who do you trust? It's really you trust the hardware root of trust. So in our case, it's Intel hardware. And everything else is built on top, and you can audit it. We have open source code you can check for themselves, and we also have self-measurement and remote attestation of the running platform, so that you can be confident at runtime that you are really evaluating your product on a legitimate platform. And we have various deployment models that all offer the same security guarantees. We can discuss more during the Q&A. This is best for non-interactive tests like static code analysis, test on individual binary files, and these kind of things. And of course, if for testing that does not risk leaking your IP, you don't need to bother with this setup that is a bit more complex than just sending your product to a traditional lab. We have 3 pilots in the project. One was chosen because it's on telecom, so it's a critical industry with very high requirements. So it's a stress test for our platform. And another is on IoT and smart home devices. This one was is to demonstrate that the IoT schemes are more mature. And we have a third pilot, which is about opening our platform to external SMEs that are not part of the project consortium. And don't hesitate to get in contact if you are interested and want to participate. So thank you.
Thanks a lot, Simon, for these interesting approaches that are, I think, also another perspective on how to solve these cybersecurity or the certification issues. So since we are a bit behind the time, I would like to continue with our next speaker and our next presentation. That will be Mirko Ross from Ashwin. So he is an IoT veteran, a security researcher, entrepreneur, and co-founder of Ashwin. And he will hold a presentation about secure IoT update orchestration, fulfilling the COA requirement in complex products. So Mirko, the stage is yours.
Yes, thanks. Just let me share my screen 1 second. I need a screen sharing, right? I don't see it.
Yes, it's at the bottom. There's a box with an arrow.
Oh, sorry. Now I got it. So thank you very much, and thanks for inviting me. So we are as well part of the DOS project. So on that, we are working as well on the elements of how to make CRA compliant processes. In this presentation, I will show you some stuff at the end, some results we are carrying out, but it's more now for me to bring in the new aspects we have seen the last couple of months, and even today there have been new aspects carried out regarding vulnerability management and handling in respect of what is the impact of agentic AI systems there. And as well, what are the trends? Because when we're discussing about a CRA, we are still discussing about a lot of things which has been, let's say, post AI era. When the CRA was designed, I think we are just it has been designed with the paradigm of the post AI era, and now things has dramatically changed the past months. First, one thing we see is like the question is in the current software development procedures and everything what is implemented in the CRA, we are thinking about a very traditional software lifecycle, which means like you're creating a software, you're improving the software, you're fixing the software, then you're carrying out a new version, for example, installing, updating a new version, or you're creating a patch. Which means that's the way how software has been created in an old-fashioned pre-AI void programming world. But in the new era we are now shifting in, there will be two ways to how software will be created and used. One is the old, let's say more the old-fashioned way, where we are using baseline software, which is created in terms of software development cycles, updates, versions, and they will be carried out. And the second part of the software will be fast fashion software, which will be created just in time when it will be needed, and with all the parameters which are necessary. And this will be created by AI-based systems and then carried out. And it's fast fashion because after we are using the software in the specific context, it will be erased. So there will be no longer software versions. And unfortunately, the CRA has not a good answer on that trend and how to deal with that. But it's what we currently see. The next thing is like, it's when we say it as a trend, it's like we are intended to build software. In the new era of AI, it will be more going into composed software. The impacts will be very drastic because as well, like with the capabilities we currently see, for example, with Anthropic Claude, like how penetration tests could be improved, or for example, the ability to reverse engineer binary code, and even not only to reverse engineer binary code which is running on devices, but as well to identify if there are vulnerabilities in there. I mean, this is a dramatical change because I think because it means no software vendor will be too small to be targeted in future, because with AI capabilities like that, it's all about scaling and automation from the attacker side as well, which will increase the number of vulnerabilities if they are for this kind of affected an attack device. Then as well, when we are shifting into, let's say, a void computing era, it means that we are creating more lines of codes in future, which mean as well that we are creating more vulnerabilities. So the way how we are predicting that CVEs are growing is not more correct. It's not only about, for example, this year's getting 60,000 new vulnerabilities or next year 100,000. It will be soon, very soon, an area where we're getting 1 million new vulnerabilities, just because AI is accelerating so much that it's no more a linear process. However, our tools in behind are not scaling the same way. So if we say like this orange line is the way how the amount of CVEs will be accelerated by the AI era, and the green line is the ability how we are currently dealing with the problems, even with automation. The area in between is the area of opportunities for attackers. So this is a growing area of opportunities if we don't change drastically our procedures within there. And I think the procedures are very clear. We need to use AI as well to scale and automate whatever we do. And even like if you look what's going on there at the moment with agentic AI, we can see as well that it's that with this ability to install and enable a couple of parallel agents to give them, for example, a certain task like identify a new CVE, create a code, carry out, identify the target devices. It has already started. I mean, within as well the DOS projects, we've shown, for example, here on a jailbreak of Grok, how quick you can deploy CVE on a let's say on a jailbreak method with Grok. So if we ask, for example, Grok here to look for a certain CVE and create a malicious code or code to exploit the CVE. Usually Grok will answer in this manner within its own guardrails that it's not allowed to do that, or give you a hint how to improve your systems and make them more secure. I mean, this is the most regular way how it should work. However, if we are attacking the AI system of Grok and forcing the AI system to do a jailbreak, we can create agents who can take over the task to look for a specific CVE, create malicious code and carry it out. That's what we're doing here. So the jailbreak is a 4-step jailbreak, just hinting the real prompt, for example, here by turning the prompt into from ASCII into hex, which is super simple, then asking Grok, converting the hex, doing 2 more steps to execute then the command, and then we have a jailbreak which will initially abuse Grok to look for this specific CVE in the internet and then create the malicious code. So it's now applying this jailbreak, and you see it's just starting to convert our command here, and then it carry out the steps. In this case, the step to create an exploit, and as well then handing over the exploit, for example, to an agent, which can then carry out the exploit and test it for several devices. And as you have seen, this has happened just in a couple of seconds. So it means in the future, the time frame between detecting a CVE, detecting that your product is affected by CVE, deploying a patch update, it will be very, very short if from a prevention side, because within 10 seconds your device could be compromised out in the wild if you use this kind of agentic AI stuff. So whatever we have as a growing attack surface and whatever we have as our abilities, we need to go as well for AI first approach here on every action we have in the cybersecurity. So prevention, detection, reaction, attribution, at least is more intelligence side, but there's no other way to deal with that problem. As well, if you have read it in the news, Anthropic has announced yesterday that they are starting a new program, which is called Glasswire, together with Amazon and Microsoft and other players, to start an AI-based vulnerability program where they try to identify certain vulnerabilities, let's say zero-day exploits in open source projects, and fix them together with the partners in the program, just a little bit to close the gap I've shown you in before, which is a growing gap of CVEs and unpatched situations. For the project itself, what we have implemented and what we are showing there now as well in terms of update orchestration is a way how can we deal with, let's say, this kind of future or today's new problems to automate updates on the devices, but as well, like we are looking into the industry and what is the current problem of the industry, can we do that as well regarding with respect, like what is the situation in the industry. And if we take very complex products, usually it's if you take a machine or a car or other complex products, it's a software product not only built with software bill of material, but as well with a hardware bill of material, and you went with a large supply chain. So usually what you need to do is you need to establish an update orchestration. You can't just give all the vendors access to your machine to apply updates. This is not how it works in terms of reliability and safety. So usually the operator or the vendor of a machine needs to be the gatekeeper for the updates, and as well he needs to be in control to control what kind of updates should be applied in which order to these machines. And as there are different vendors in there, this is a growing challenge, because all the vendors in terms of CRA, they're now presenting their way how they provide updates in different manners, because the CRA is not talking in specific how it should be done. Some of them are just presenting updates on web servers. Some will just hand them over by requests, and some are providing secure methods for automated updates. I mean, this is really a very complex situations. However, what we have built up there is a tooling support which allows you as a vendor and operator of this kind of machines to onboard all the different vendors, to onboard their update platforms and their update procedures, and then to define for each device what will be the update orchestrations and what will be the procedures in there. And we did this in a way really like with a very intuitive user interface as well. It's easy to understand, for example, for a manager, an operator of a machine, what kind of devices are in operation, what is the specific version and configuration of a device, what kind of firmwares or updates are available, so what are provided from different vendors, for example, for which purpose. And then you can create a rollout management where you define for a specific group, fleet of devices or single devices, what kind of updates should be applied, in which order, what kind of updates should be just pulled from the component vendor and then applied in a certain time frame by the rollout management to this certain asset. And as well, like from an asset perspective, of course, there are many things which can go wrong. Let's say you are applying an update, and then you need maybe as well the possibility to roll back or revoke updates and all this stuff of failure management. But however, we have shown that it works. In the field currently, we are preparing a second demonstrator together with machinery component vendors, just to show in reality, what are these challenges towards the CRA and what needs to be done now? Because as you know, all the certification and standard schemes in the CRA are not ready. So however, the companies need to provide a solution now. And by that, it's very practical to show how they can orchestrate the updates here for specific industrial protocols and standards with this tooling support we have developed. And by that, thank you very much. I'm looking just forward to the discussions.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mirko, for this is also quite important topic, so that might be underestimated. So we will discuss this later on in the roundtable. Now we come to our last presentation for today. That is being held by Trong Lin, or Lin Truong, I guess, or I fear it's a short name today. I pronounce it the wrong way. He is professor at the Department of Computer Science at the Aalto University in Finland. He leads a team researching on systems, software, data, and service engineering analytics by developing novel techniques and tools for architecting, coordinating, monitoring, analyzing, and optimizing functions, performance, dependability, data quality, elasticity, and resiliency associated with system software data and AI ML services. His presentation is called Principles, Processes, and Mechanisms for Assurance-Driven AI-Based Security Engineering Across the Lifecycle on Edge Cloud Software. And with this, I would like to give the stage to you, Lin. Please start your presentation.
Hi, can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, so hi everyone. So I want to discuss about principles, processes, and mechanisms that we are going to do in the SECASSURED Assurance project. And I'm from Finland. And in this project, we are focused on assurance-driven AI-based security engineering across the life cycle from the left to the right. I will explain a little bit later on. So this is a one new project. We start from last December with 19 partners. So what I'm going to talk today is actually more on what we are going to do in the next, let's say, less than 3 years, more on the future perspective rather than like other colleagues who already have the tool running and show you a sample and so on and so forth. Having said that, I think one of the first things is very important. That is we define very clearly what is the IoT ecosystem and what kind of software we are going to support in this project. So I think listen carefully from other colleagues, some of the some of the messages about policy and certification or security about IoT. I have the feeling that the IoT may be in a small scale. I mean, it complex, but it may be in a small scale in the sense that, you know, it's sitting, for example, in a car, or let's say in an edge server or some devices and so on. So in this project, what we are focusing more on the software that in the edge and cloud continuum. And what this means? It means that our focus software is include many components. Of course, a lot of IoT components, but there are also AI and ML components. And you see that we have near real-time streaming data, of course, from IoT device and so on and so forth. But there are also inference, there are also services, and at the end, maybe the result will go also back to some IoT device and so on. So there are a lot of IoTs in this kind of software, but they are only one part of the software. And I would like to say that this is the main form of today application that we see everywhere. And in this project, we have telco software, we have application in manufacturing, e-health, smart energy, and so on. So from the viewpoint of Trusted IoT Ecosystem, I would say that most of us continue to rely on the well-known pillars, for example, security, privacy, safety, reliability, resilience, whatever you call. And then you see it in many standard and many, regulation and so on, and also in many different tools. But what is new? I think what is new is that when you look into this kind of software, then we have to see that there are different and new measurement and new metrics and new interpretation. I mean, one of our colleagues already showed, right? There's a repository about the metrics, but the metrics is only one thing. There's also the interpretation. And why do we have it? Because I think the thing that is now with this kind of software, you have a lot of AI ML components. So it means we need to consider AI ML characteristics. And the complexity of and cloud runtime platform is very interesting, because if you look into the runtime platform, you have virtual machine, you have maybe Kubernetes, some orchestration, and then you even have embedded hardware and many other things. And the data, streaming IoT data, that means you have a data problem. And very often that with this kind of software, we have a very dynamic scenario and multi-stakeholders. So it means that in order to understand what is the key thing, I would like us to really re-examine what are the stakeholders in this ecosystem. So in this figure, we highlight a very, very, very high level, that potential stakeholders. And you see there are some red circle where I actually put it there to remind us that, okay, for this kind of software, we have new stakeholder we need to consider, and it's more than traditional IoT or small scale IoT software. For example, nowadays we have a software, we have a machine learning service, and maybe you only develop a machine learning service, but actually you utilize an existing machine learning model. But the existing machine learning model may be retrained by you, but maybe you buy from some vendor, and that vendor actually buy data from some other guy. So if we look into the stakeholder here, we see a very complex situation that the liability of your machine learning service actually based on the machine learning model you buy from somewhere, and then also based on the data that people use to train the machine learning model, or actually also your data that you use to retrain or fine-tuning the machine learning model that you use in your software. So it means that in terms of security or in terms of policy and certification, we need to really incorporate a lot of things. And I think many of you already saw in the previous slide, there's just so many things, right? I think if we look into perspective of standard, let's say data policy certification related to this kind of topic, you see so many things. For example, in the software development, we see like SPOM, but there are also now AI POM, and then you see SLSA. When we incorporate machine learning model into our software, there is AI ML model card. And then there at runtime, you have observability data, for example, from telemetry, trace, log, but also VEC and CSF, AF, and so on. And then for the purpose of certification and monitoring, we always do it again and again. So continuous inspection and testing report and so on. There are actually so many. But actually, they are wide isolated, they are silo. But on the other hand, we miss a lot of information as well. For example, very hard to get the structure and cultural dependency in the software. In particular, when you look at the dependency related to the data and machine learning model and so on. I mean, SPOM, for example, is mainly about software package and library and so on. You cannot see other parts of the dependency. And then we talk about, okay, certified people, certified software, because we know that they test the software and so on, but do we know that? Where do they train the data? What kind of environment they want to train the data and so on? This kind of thing is really empty at the moment, right? If we want to certify the machine learning model is good, we also have to look into training data, the way how they train, like the workflow and the environment and so on. And then they're changing operational scenario and validation. Another thing is because the ecosystem is so complex, so many stakeholders, so very difficult actually to get the data. Even a lot of stakeholders are ready to give you the data, but we don't have a good way to manage it. So unify namespace, and also nowadays many stakeholders they don't provide very low level data anymore, right? They provide high level data. It kind of like using agentic system or whatever, provide a high level protocol for you to get the data. So a lot of things like this happen. So in this particular project, it means that our compliance and security assurance model must capture a lot of data, artifacts, services, workflow for full life cycle, yeah, from development to operation. So what we are going to do? Very important that in this project, actually, we try to define clearly what are the principles, what are the processes, and what are mechanisms. And I think this is important because for the long run and also for extensibility, we really need to look into principle, processes, and mechanisms that help us to move on with a very complex software and ecosystem. So example principle like driven security and compliance evaluation. Yeah, scenario driven. So we need to really think a lot about different scenarios now, so on. What about life cycle wide assured environment? So digital twin, kind of like enable this kind of thing, the principle. And another principle, AI enables multi-stakeholder collaboration. Yeah. But then based on the principle, we elaborate and define processes. So given one principle, you can define different processes, right? So in this view, we define a couple of processes like cross lifecycle compliance and non-compliance evaluation. So compliance and non-compliance across the lifecycle. Discovery and prepare security and compliance vulnerability. And incident simulation, for example, in a coordinated way. Now, given a process, one can identify what are suitable tools and what are suitable ways to do this. That's why we come up with the mechanism, right? So we have an AI-based security service catalogs for coordinated assurance tasks, for example. And then we have distributed and federated digital twins for supply chain collaboration with human in the loop. I think this is a thing important that we get the principle and we define the processes and we let people, right, the best way to implement mechanism, right, to achieve the processing. This is the goal of this project. So at the moment, we are working on this kind of architecture and integration and implement the process and so on, so forth. So you see in this picture actually demonstrate very clear what I just mentioned before. For example, we have development twin and operation twin. Then underneath we have a lot of different security service inside catalog, so then you can pick up the right one, for the right purpose. Then we have assurance model that capture different aspects that I mentioned before, development and operation. And then assurance knowledge graph is kind of, capture very complexity, very complex software structure and stakeholder management and so on and so forth, to achieve the goal of assurance. So how do we have it? So I think with this kind of approach, it means that we can really have to achieve continuous policy and certification, because a principle that if you want to get some data for validation or recertification or whatever, you can easily to get it. But very important that we enable the new interpretation of assurance for emerging issue. I mean, in particular, AI and ML, right? Moving away from the old, let's say, aspect that we know very well, like embedded system and traditional security and so on. Another thing is very important that we don't believe that even Europe or American, you are very powerful. You cannot ask people to provide all kind of data you want. So it means there's a way that we must have a way, a tangible way and a global verification chain via multiple actors. And then some actors, they have very useful tool or whatever, they can provide the data in some way to allow us to really verify, some parts of the software, for example. And then how do we glue everything together, to achieve the goal of assurance? This is I think a very interesting aspect. And of course, with that, we support coordinated assurance, analysis, and labeling scheme with the best combination of traditional and emerging AI solutions. So with AI services in catalog, you can do a lot of things, but of course, you never trust, right? You are never sure about it. So you always have human in the loop, and traditional machine learning also work very well with many cases. And I think it's very important that with this, it means that we are able to support training for certification, dealing with emerging trustworthy aspects. That the trustworthy aspect now is not just traditional software component, but inside software, there will be data, there will be model, and there will be many other things that we need to consider. With that, as I said, we are starting just a few months ago, so there are a lot of open questions actually we have to address, and then this is very good for everyone to collaborate. Thank you very much. If you need some information, contact us. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Lynn, for this interesting presentation as well. So we are here at the end of our presentations, and we will now switch to the roundtable and the panel discussion, for which I would like to ask all the speakers to switch on the cameras and participate here in the discussion. So, and I would also like to welcome, if I'm not mistaken, Björn Fanter here from Fabersoft, who will also be part of the panel discussion and support us here. So he is here from the TELEMETRY project and is from Fabersoft Research here from the, so Björn Fanter is from the Fabersoft Research company, and he is here for the Emerald project. I'm sorry for that. Great to have you here. Okay, great. So we had a number of presentations, and we also have a number of questions to the presentations. So let me first start with a few questions to each of you, and please feel welcome also to step into the discussion and also show your opinion on a certain topic, so that we can see different views from all of you on the different subjects that have been here presented, and where we have questions for. I will start in the order of the presentations so that we can go through everything. And I would like to start with a presentation from Roberto Caskeller. You said in the beginning of your presentations that all the regulation is a result of a market failure. That seems to be, of course, a bold claim if you are part of the market. So the question would be, is it really a market failure, or is it in favor of the technology where, in particular in the times of AI and LLMs, adversaries always have an advantage? So is it really about the market failure, or is it about building trust into the market for the users and the market participants?
Thank you, Martin. I mean, that's an interesting question. Of course, it's a personal opinion, that I'm expressing here. I think that if you look at, so normally there are certain aspects that are market driven, that are regulated, by the market, that generates, competitiveness, and then in particular when we place the different products on the market. So usually the market tends to drive also the competition and then the innovation. But then when we have to talk about certain type of, for instance, fundamental rights or any other, important aspects that we need to protect. So in that case, I mean, regulation needs to intervene on that side, especially when we consider that if you have different set of products that are available on the market, cybersecurity is not always evident. Most of the time, like cybersecurity can be equivalent, personally, I think, to a kind of an insurance. You don't know, whether the cybersecurity that is embedded in the product is effective until you have an attack, and then also it will reduce the impact of that attack. It's the same case, when you have like somebody, I don't know, entering into your house or anything, that it's an event that normally you should not happen. So in a sense, it's very much difficult sometimes to compare these the security properties that are embedded into different products that are available on the market. So that's why I'm saying that the policy and regulation needs to intervene in that case, especially when we look at the horizontal perspective to raise the bar to make the product more resilient. And this is also an important point when you look at the supply chain and then the impact of the supply chain for the way that attacks are succeeding and can be escalated. So we need to ensure that there is a proper baseline that is guaranteed, like within the product, in particular, mostly to try to reduce the impact of future attacks. So I would say that so that's why I'm saying that it's also an answer to the market aspect. So they need to go on both sides. Let's say innovation driven by the market, but also the policy and regulation needs to be there to really ensure that certain aspects are protected, or maybe we raise the bar, and so where the market might not be able to capture all these differences, especially for the customers and for the end users.
Yeah. Makes absolutely sense. Thanks.
Yeah.
So the next question will be for Martin or Björn from Martin from the Telemetry project. It's particularly related to one of the tools that you presented, where you take advantage of the SBOM in order to look for vulnerabilities. And from the Cyber Resilience Act, a manufacturer does not need to publish the SBOM. So would you think that publishing the SBOM would help to increase the security level because it is more transparent which vulnerabilities might be inside a system or software?
Yes, interesting question. And of course, I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not able to actually comment on the legality or the legal aspects of what manufacturers must do with the SBOM. I would imagine that they should actually provide the SBOM to their customers, because otherwise, what's the point with the SBOM? But as I explained, it's also possible to, by analyzing the binary of the firmware, we're talking about IoT devices. It's also possible to assemble your own SBOM more or less completely, depending on other factors. And I think it's quite important. People who attended the IoT Day last year, I believe, there was some discussion about what does the SBOM what does publishing the SBOM actually imply for the intellectual property rights of the manufacturer? And here I think that this is a common misunderstanding, that there's no IPR loss for the manufacturer in terms of publishing the SBOM, because it's really only about the libraries that are used in that particular firmware, so that you're not actually revealing any secret information about how you have created your software or your firmware, because that's still not present in the SBOM. But it's more about, yes, we are using the OpenSSL library, we are using this library and that enables you to track the supply chain aspects of the particular firmware in question, so that in the case where there is OpenSSL is, of course, a very old example with the Heartbleed incident, but we have much more recent examples, such as the XSET incident, which was avoided at the last minute by some very astute open source contributor. I believe it actually was somebody in Microsoft who discovered that there was a vulnerability which had been introduced in this XSET library, but it was actually prevented from spreading. Yeah, I think, if you ask me, I think definitely SBOMs, all the manufacturers should publish all their SBOMs, and that wouldn't make, I think it would make the internet more secure, and I think it puts users in a better position to actually protect their own installations.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Maybe. Understand. So it's a bit similar to some food product where the manufacturer needs to publish the ingredients without publishing the recipe.
Excellent. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, thanks. Then let's go to the next presentation, since we don't have too much time. So I would like that everyone has the chance to answer a question. So that would be the Emerald project with Emmanuel and Björn. So you presented as part of the project results these and this ontology and the corresponding metrics. And the question is, are you about to standardize the ontology? Are the metrics recognized by authorities, and can they be used by them as well?
So I will go ahead, Octavia. So for now, the ontology is not standardized. It's a project we have been working on for quite some time, a few years. And this, like I said, the metrics definitions, the data format for that, is also something that has been in the making for quite some time. We are also working with an industry partner right now to test this in practice. And our goal is indeed to also publish an RFC for standardizing this data format to get this into the broader public and industry. So right now it's not really standardized yet, but this is definitely something we are aiming at. Yeah.
Okay, great. Sounds something that like many can benefit from. Maybe just the second part of the question. So do you think that also the authorities benefit from these metrics in the course of certification, for instance?
Björn, do you want to chime in?
I would just answer in a way that we believe from an Emerald perspective that of course there is a benefit when we look at ideas like the common repository for metrics or a common repository of controls. And there are discussions when I look at institutions like ENISA and ETSI and maybe even Senelec, but I'm not with a member state, so I'm not directly involved there. But there are discussions around how do we get rid of these PDF-based content that is circled around and have it really written down in controls, metrics, streamlined, standardized ways to exchange this, to communicate this. So without wanting to put too much into how consensus and standardization can work, I would say, yes, there is a benefit. And in the according institutions, there are a good amount of people that see the benefits and that are willing to work towards that. I think this is the most diplomatic way to put it. And actually, there is something that I saw while looking up the SECASSURED project that some things like OSCAL that float around every now and then are picked up in upcoming future or new ongoing projects as well. So it's good to see that it takes time, but it's ongoing because the benefits to even streamline and standardize these parts is definitely there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, thank you. Okay, then let's go to Simon. So you presented a lot about composition and also about competition and the challenges that arise from that. What do you consider as the biggest challenge with respect to cybersecurity? Is it the composition of products or is it the competition between market actors?
I mean, so I would say the composition is the biggest one. But from the early pilot operation, I would say the largest challenge is something a third possibility entirely. It's actually the fact that even with the amount of automation we provide, it is still very hard for product owners to have the the required context and security expertise to define their security objectives and requirements. And that has been a big challenge in the pilot operations. And that's why I'm answering, like, if I'm limiting myself to the original question and the two options that were proposed, that's why I would say that the composition is the hardest part, because it's not always obvious for manufacturers and product owners what are the security implications of assembling different blocks and making them communicate with each other when you have a composite product. Competition is what's the word? It's like, it's something that makes people hesitate, but if you take the time to explain the situation clearly to them and you make them think about it rationally, usually they see that it's more beneficial to cooperate than to remain entirely secret. So competition is something that slows things down, but not really blocks it. And what really blocks the thing is the lack of security expertise, especially for smaller companies that are not focused on security.
Okay, thanks a lot.
I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I hope so as well. But at least it helps to understand your opinion on that. That's, I think, important here. Then let's go next to Mirko. I think you make a bold, you advocated for the use of AI at all times. So the question is then, if you advocate for that, is AI not only part of the solution, but also part of the problem with all the issues it currently has?
As it is dual use, it's of course part of the problem, but as well part of the solution. I mean, this is competition between attackers and defenders, and I think towards scaling, we have no other options than to use as well AI first strategies. The main problem is the paradigm change at the moment. I think we are discussing too much in the old software paradigms, and now we are still not adapted to what's going on in the market, as well from the regulatory side, but as well from the industry side. However, I want to come back to Martin, who said, "Oh yes, we need the SBOMs from the suppliers." I will give you really a very practical example. When Log4j was happening, and we had customers with already SBOMs in place, let's say for medical devices and stuff like that, with proper high regulations. No one was trusting the SBOMs provided by the suppliers. Everybody was asking them, "Please check, is Log4j in the current version, blah, blah, blah." And this is to me an indicator that you can't use SBOMs in terms of insurance for third-party components, because you can't trust them. So you can trust SBOMs for your own software you're developing and use it for vulnerability management, but not for complex products where you have different SBOMs and you try to model a threat model of your current situation in the product. It's not working. So but now we have new abilities, like we said, like, I mean, Claude is fantastic on binary reverse engineering. So why you are asking your vendors with Log4j and it takes weeks, you're getting a response when you can start immediately a binary reverse engineering and look for if the components are in or not, and you can do that within, let's say, a minute. So that's, I think, where we should use the new capabilities instead of hoping that the CRA will improve our situations towards the vendors. But as I have named Martin and we are in a discussion, I'm looking forward to your feedback on this.
Yeah, try to be brief here, but I think it's really a question, as you say, regulation. Will we rely on regulation or not? If we say that regulation doesn't help, then of course we lose. But the idea is, of course, that the CRA says you must have an SBOM.
Yeah. Don't misunderstand. We are not losing. the point is we will not win if we rely on regulation. That's, I think, my message is like, at the moment, the industry is trying to say, well, we're just, okay, we will act like what is in the CRA, and this is our safe harbor. And this is not true, because the regulation was made in times where we were not foreseeing certain paradigm shifts. I think that's the problem. So do whatever you want, create a SBOM, put it in your file storage, do whatever you want, but this will be never the truth. No one in the industry will trust a SBOM from a third-party vendor. And should, by the way, because you don't know what is their cybersecurity processes and how it works. Yeah.
Yeah. So can I jump in the same topic? So I think this is a hybrid issue between processes and policies. I think most people don't trust third-party SBOM today because they have experience showing them that SBOM are not trustworthy at the time. And this is because the process of maintaining them is bad. But if we have more automated processes to maintain SBOM and keep them up to date with the actual live version of the software, and once SBOM becomes trustworthy, that will be easier for third-party SBOM to be accepted. And one way to force them to become trustworthy, I think, is to have regulation with enforcement and penalties when discrepancies are observed between your official SBOM and the reality of your product. So I think it's two complementary pieces, and we should rely on both of them.
Okay, thanks, Simon. So two others also raised their hand. So Roberto was, I think, the next one. You're still muted, Roberto. We can't hear you.
Yeah, I think that Mirko, you raised an important point, and then I highlighted at the end of the presentation that I think one of the challenges that we have, like technology and regulations coming together, is the automated validation of SBOM, especially when we need to ensure the validity during the life cycle. And this is, for me, is the challenging part, because especially when we look at the way that software is deployed and then is consumed, the challenge is not to ensure, that we get the right snapshot, and then we need to understand also how deep needs to be the SBOM consumed and so on, but really to ensure that we have a maintenance during the life cycle of the product. And this is a challenge that we need to address. I mean, like Simon also mentioned that, and we need to have that could come, from the research point of view, to really investigate on some possibilities to ensure like automated validation during the life cycle. This is some challenging aspects. So for us, it's something that we identified, and I think that is important really to look at for the future as well.
Okay, thanks also for that statement, Roberto. Björn, you also raised your hand.
Yeah, let's see, to make it quick, it's more or less, I think, one or two statements as well, because I was thinking at the SBOM discussion or question at the beginning already that maybe the part of sovereignty brings a dimension to it that just raises the need for it even beyond security. And because with an SBOM, you could be more able to prove almost or even complete sovereignty on your software stack. Okay, could be an idea. The thing then is, I understand the remark with the trustworthiness, but I feel, or I hope, that an idea like an SBOM could go beyond some part of self-declaration. So if you think on certification or attestation on security compliance, currently I would say, do I trust a self-declaration of a cloud service provider? And then I'm like, yeah, maybe. And this feels like the SBOM discussion we had here now is, kind of similar. Do I trust it when it's self-declaration, or what is the mechanism beyond that is no longer self-declaration, and is it then a trustworthy asset or method? Let's put it that way. Yep.
Okay, thanks, Björn. So maybe let's give also a little chance to contribute to the discussion. So if I understood it correctly, so you see that there's currently there are too many silos, and there's too less interaction or integration in the different policies and regulations for the IoT ecosystem. So is this understanding correct? And do you think, what do you think, Lynn, how this could be solved?
Yeah, I think the truth was also reflected in the version that we discussed SFORM. I think SFORM is nice, but it's actually just a very simple information. And actually, you look at SFORM, you cannot, follow the whole life cycle or many scenario situation and on. But I think there's a lot of policy, and then to be honest, there's so many, let's say, YAML, JSON or XML, whatever presentation machine, let's say machine readable format already ready. But they always come from different perspective, either single IoT or something completely like traditional software. But I think the new software nowadays is very different, and actually, at the moment, there are just so many different standards, different way. I don't believe that there will be a way that you can define, let's say, a super SBOM or whatever, able to capture all kind of things related to software component, third-party services, and AI and so on. There's no possible. So the question I think is, here I'm trying to think that more on the data platform approach. Why? Because we are coming into verified software nowadays based on a lot of different data, right? SBOM, AI boom, whatever, and trade and so on. And they come from different phase of the life cycle. It means that if you have a software running, they are continuously coming from the developer operation and from multiple parties. So you have to accept that there will be a way to receive different kind of data related to the same software. And how do you link them together? Yeah. Ontology, meta ontology, knowledge graph, whatever, you link them together, and then you have to do the reasoning. And in this case, you really need to think about the data platform viewpoint. And then stakeholder, I do not agree that why don't we do the binary check by ourselves. I mean, this you can do it, but it's easy. It's small software. If you do the real binary check for very complex software, you spend all the money, right? For that, it's not your job. So it means that you have to really liberate that every bhakti, they have a very powerful capability to share the data and then also do some test. And the question is, how do we establish the trust here? And this is go back into the principle of zero trust. So I don't trust the third party, but I know the third party, they have a very powerful tool, right? To generate a lot of information. So I trust the third party in a sense because we have a contractual, right? You sell the software to me, I give your software. So we have a contractual, so the trust based on the contractual, but I also allow them to give me a lot of information, even they can hide low-level information, as long as we establish the exchange mechanism. So I think we really need to think about near real-time data platform viewpoint if we want to gather the information. And to be honest, in no way that you enforce people to follow all kind of regulation, and you are not able to define a super data format to ask everyone to provide. It's not possible.
Okay, okay, thanks. So I think we are actually a bit over the time, but let's close this discussion with a short statement from all of you. So what do you believe? What would increase the security in Europe? Is it actually the new regulation that has been adopted, or is it technology that helps and supports companies to be compliant with that? So maybe we can start with Roberto.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, technology is at the core, so that's there needs to be the driver, especially for innovation, and then we need to really develop right capabilities at European level. That's for me, is the key. Of course, as I mentioned before, so when regulation, will help will support to ensure, that we increase the resilience, that we meet our objectives, and so on. But definitely, I think that the core it's technology and people. So the skills is fundamental from that point of view.
Okay, so thanks a lot. Let's go to Martin.
Yeah, I will just say briefly, I think sovereign software and services, that will help.
Okay, very short, very precise. Thank you. Emmanuel and Björn.
Yeah, I can only agree. I guess regulation is really getting us to a common minimum, but it's really comes really down to technology and people. I think the statement is very, very true to really invest in good security.
Thank you. Björn?
I want to repeat something where I got some heads shaking 4 weeks ago in Brussels, but I think from the EU Commission, but I think that regulation, technology, so industry and research have to be faster on collaboration. And the example I want to put up for that is the years we spent with the EUCS, and meanwhile the BSIC5 and the second cloud have new revisions. So speed.
Yeah.
It's not about we can't do it, we have to be faster. That's
okay. Interesting that they shake their head. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's like high quality standard and consensus need time. And I was like, yes, but if it takes 20 years, the high quality does not matter. But okay, let's shorten this up.
Thanks for the interesting story. Yeah. Mirko.
No, which was a good point, Björn. Regulation will not bring us forward. That's very simple. It's too slow. I mean, we have now already the omnibus for the CRA and for the AI Act. However, the AI Act is not in place yet, really. So it's too slow. So what we need is a brief, fast way to adapt to current situations and bring it into the market, enable people, companies, researchers, providing them the right environment and tooling support. I think that's what we need.
Thank you. Simon.
I agree with a lot of the things that have been said previously, but if I have to pick one that I think is the most important one, I would say that I agree with Martin about sovereign systems.
Okay, thank you. Lynn.
So I think I already mentioned in my slide, I think that this is about principle, processes, and mechanism. So I think that the regulation should probably forget about mechanism. Maybe they talk a little bit about principle and processes to guide people, but let us to select the mechanism to prove that, okay, I'm following this process and so on. As a researcher, we have to really think about what is the principle, and then given one principle, you can have multiple process, and let company find the best mechanism to implement this process.
Okay.
It's my view.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, all of you. Thanks to all the speakers we had here for the interesting presentation and also for the insightful discussion. And that you all stayed here. We also would like to thank the audience that was very interested and also raised many questions that are interested. Not all of them could be asked, but I think if they are interested, they can also approach you after the webinar here and approach you to get the information, and this information will also be uploaded to the event website where we have we'll have the presentations and the recording of this event. And I think with that we can close. And I would be lucky and would look forward to seeing you next year here again in the next edition on the IoT Day Roundtable. Thanks a lot. Have a nice afternoon.